Healings Explored. This program delves into the more unusual aspects and facets of healing, primarily focusing on non-traditional practices, concepts, and practitioners. Healings will not only examine the places where healing can be found in our everyday lives, but the program will explore the very definition of what healing actually is and what it does, and why it is so necessary to positive change and growth.
Survival of the fittest meant, they'd say, oh, the one with the biggest teeth and the longest claws is going to survive. But that doesn't explain butterflies. That doesn't explain orchids. That doesn't explain roses, for God's sake. It doesn't explain beauty. And how beauty is a survival strategy.
Well, here we are in Topanga Canyon in a beautiful canopy, under a beautiful canopy of oaks and a variety of birds and all kinds of plants, talking to Richard Grossman, who describes himself on his website as a practitioner of functional medicine.
Yes.
And do you want to talk a little bit about that and explain what some of the elements of that are?
Sure. The idea behind functional medicine and the idea behind the paradigm that I work with is that the body is designed, we're designed to function at a high level. And many times, many people have illnesses that show up on laboratory tests, they show up on x-rays, they show up on MRIs. And then there's this other area of function where people might not have a nameable disease, but they're not functioning well. They may have bad digestion, they may be emotionally drained, they may be having things like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, things that don't really fit in to Western diagnoses very well yet. So functional medicine is the art of increasing and helping the way that the body functions on all different levels.
And you described earlier this remarkable setting as sort of being inhabited by Gabrielino or a variety of Indian tribes in the area. Do you take some of your healing or some of your practices from Indian or shamanic backgrounds or traditions?
Definitely. This was inhabited, this was a meeting place. Topanga was a meeting place for the Gabrielanos and the Chumash and maybe one or two other tribes. And it was also an area where they came to gather acorns and to hunt. And it was an area of great plenty, of great beauty. It still is an area of great beauty. But the Chumash Indians who lived in this area had no word in their vocabulary for hunger. The shamanic aspect of healing is really critical to understand because, in my opinion, it's the next phase of healing that our society has to go through. The basic European culture that founded this country after decimating the Native Americans was a culture that was afraid of the unknown. Everything had to be known. There was no unknowable, because if it was mysterious, it was in the Bible. If it was not within the realm of current knowledge, it simply didn't exist.
So Richard, you also, you contrast the Western European with the shamanic. Do you see any connection with the shamanic and, say, other traditions such as acupuncture or some of the other traditions that are in the world today?
Let me start by saying that I don't see these as being necessarily separate areas, because the concept of holism, of holistic medicine, is that it's all interrelated. So as I'm seeing a patient, I'm going to be thinking in Western terms, what's going on with them nutritionally, what nameable or named illness might they have, and what does all that mean, and what's happening at their biochemistry level, at their physical level. I'm also thinking in acupuncture terms as to what acupuncture, well, acupuncture of course is an energetic medicine. It's based on the concept of the flow of energy in the body, and that these tiny needles can redirect the way energy flows in the body, much like a switchboard, an old-fashioned relayed switchboard can relay telephone communications around. On the shamanic level, we're going into really subtle stuff. We're going into even beyond emotional. We're going into what kind of deep impressions or shocks have occurred in a person's life, and how to loosen those up and allow the energy again to flow freely. One of my tools in the shamanic realm is to use sound and music. And I'll be using sound and music. I'll be using acupuncture. I might be using physical medicine like massage, or something that's called Tui Na in Chinese, which is like a manipulation. I'll be thinking herbally, what kinds of herbs would be the most beneficial for them. I'm thinking nutritionally, what vitamins or minerals or nutrients might there be lacking in them. So I think it's just a way of looking at a person on different levels. The shaman might have been considered to be the psychotherapist of the indigenous world, but it goes even deeper than that, deeper than psychotherapy, because it's not about understanding as much as it is about releasing.
Part of what you say your healing is to help us function on a very high level, or achieve the high level of functioning that we're sort of naturally built for. Do you see our relationship to animals, or do we function at a higher level than other forms of life, or why do we need the healing when an animal or a plant won't get that healing and apparently doesn't need it at the level that we do?
We've been separated from our instincts. Our instincts, even more, our instincts have been subverted and corrupted and made wrong. For example, I talk about this with my patients a lot. What are our instincts? We have our instincts. We are instinctual beings. We like to think, oh, we're better than the animals, but we're instinctual beings. And what is instinct? What tastes good to us? What smells good? What feels good? What looks good? You know, these are our instincts. How have they been subverted? For example, our bodies have a need for vitamin C from the outside. Most mammals, except all mammals except humans and guinea pigs, manufacture vitamin C in their bodies. Our genetic link, someplace in our genetic background, that link was broken. We had a non-beneficial mutation that affected the human race. So we have a huge need for vitamin C. Where's vitamin C found? In fruit. So when we find fruit in nature, there'll be a natural instinctive, man, this tastes good, I want to eat a lot of it. So that's been subverted by, oh yeah, well, have some ice cream, have a pastry, have some white sugar from which everything has been removed. So our instincts then are subverted. We have a need for fat. We have a great need for fat, and fat in nature is hard to find. So when we find fat in nature, our instinct is, boy, this tastes good, I want to eat a lot of it. But now there's fat every place. So that's why, you know, and it goes on and on and on. That's just two very simple examples. It goes on and on and on and on to the point where our whole instinctual being is no longer in contact, for most of us, with the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the ground that we live on. A dog, a plant, well, a dog that's living in nature, a wolf, for example, knows what it wants. A vulture knows that it's going to eat a dead and slightly rotting animal. To the vulture, that's delicious. To a zebra, or an impala, or a cow or a horse, it's horrid. To one of those creatures, grass tastes delicious. To a lion or a tiger, well, they'll eat grass too, but for the most part they won't. But, that's not something that they're going to eat. That's the instincts, our instinctual nature. We also have, we think a lot. We think too much. And that gets us in trouble.
What would a treatment with you look like or sound like if I were to arrive and say, I'm not feeling working at my potential, can you help me? How do you move the patient to the next phase?
Well, the first phase is going to be, of course, diagnosis. And I do that very similar to the way that any doctor would do a diagnosis. I ask questions, I might run laboratory tests. I'm looking for the obvious physical signs and symptoms, we call them. I'm looking for your history, I'm looking for your family background. What is there genetically that might be a weak link or a place that needs help? I'm looking at all of your habits, what you eat, what vices you may have and how carefully nurtured your vices are. Carefully nurtured vice is one of my pet words. I believe that we all are going to want to have vices. It's just a natural human characteristic to want to have fun. So my advice to people is that they take their vices and carefully nurture them. So if you like wine, for example, make sure it's a really good wine. Make sure it's a fine wine, maybe a little bit outside of your price range, so you don't drink too much of it, but you enjoy it to the fullest. And that goes with all manner of food. Make sure the quality is the finest quality you can get. Even if it's more expensive, eat less, drink less. Nobody gets hurt by that. We all eat too much, really. Then I'll look at you through the acupuncture world, taking your pulse, looking at your tongue, going to signs and symptoms that are more subtle than they are in Western diagnosis. This process on the initial visit takes about an hour just to go through this, and I spend about a half an hour on each patient before they visit me as I send out forms to them and they send the forms back to me and I review the forms.
I know that we're sitting here and there's a beautiful incense coming out of your house, and there's you're experiencing a variety of healing techniques. Do you want to talk about some of the variations? You have sound, you have smell, you have all kinds of tools at your disposal.
Well, I don't work a lot with smell other than I burn Nepalese incense and sage because they have a healing energy to me. But the sound is a really important part of my life right now. As I grew up, I would experience different sounds. Jaws harps were, when I was in high school, I got a Jaws harp and just started playing that. Appalachian-style Jaws harp. I still have it, actually. Gotta get laid down for that one. Whoa! That is wonderful.
Where are they from?
It's from China, from one of the tribal areas of China. Acquiring musical instruments, learning how to play them from different indigenous cultures or different shamanic cultures. I basically have instruments now from all over the world that I, to one degree of success or another, play. Quite often over a patient as they're getting treated, or for a patient as they're getting treated.
So you've collected a bunch of these instruments, and I may be looking at a bunch of didgeridoos or something in there.
One of my obsessions.
Could we go in and sort of take a look and see some of the sound stuff that you do?
Of course.
Didgeridoo you blow in and out on, huh?
Well, you blow out. It's always out.
Oh, that's right. But you're
strictly breathing. It's a rhythm instrument. It's almost a percussion instrument. That's right. When I'm using it for healing work, I don't do so much rhythm because I want it to be more trancey. But as a musical instrument, the really good ones can keep a rhythm going and 2 or 3 levels of different music going at once. They're used in sweat lodges and ceremonies, but if you can feel it over you playing it.
Yes, actually.
Because our bodies are water, guess what? Sound travels through water even better than it does through air.
Much better.
So the sound is hitting us physically and vibrating our cells. The whole body vibrates. You don't feel it because we don't have vibratory sensors so much inside of us, but everything inside of you is vibrating with this. And as well as the sounds, when they hit the brain, they change the way that the brain is functioning. Probably well over 100 years old, and it's made out of 7 primary metals, and each metal of course vibrates at a different frequency, getting a number of different overtones going at once. And now just close your eyes and listen.
I guess what surprises me is it sounds like I'm inside the bowl when you do that.
No.
It's not as though it's out here being hit. It just sounds like it's all around me.
Many of the ancient scriptures talk about the concept of an internal sound, of internal music. And to me, sound healing, the best sound healing is triggering off those memories that we have of that internal stream of life inside of us, which is a very high level of healing. So as you listen to this, it's familiar. You may have never heard it before, right? But it's familiar, isn't it?
Right.
There's a familiarity to it. And that could be from the sounds that, we heard in the womb, or it could be from something that's even before that. A universal cosmic sound.
I guess as I think about these things, there's no reason for me to see sound as anything other than one of the ways of accessing me. I eat through my mouth, I breathe through my nose, I see with my eyes, and I hear. And all of that is a way of getting sort of from the outside to the inside.
Yes.
As you say, sort of,
Yeah.
You are a part of this and it becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
Is there a way you could sort of demonstrate, I'm hesitant to ask, but demonstrate a little bit on me to sort of...
Of course I could. Slide down, face up. Here. Normally we would have spent a lot of time already talking about what you need, where you're at, what might be wrong with you, what might be right with you. So, and then I would go into Chinese mode and take your pulse for a few minutes and then pop some acupuncture needles in you.
What are you looking for in the pulse?
Well, each position on the wrist, there's 3 positions, and there's shallow and deep. And each one of those positions reflects the status and health of a particular organ system in the body.
So it's not just the pace or the strength?
No, you're looking for 20-something different qualities in each position of the pulse. You're looking for, is the pulse smooth? Is it floating? Is it, up really pounding beyond the surface of the skin? Is it really hard to find? You have to push really hard and deep to find the pulse. Is there a wiry feeling to it, almost as though it was a string being plucked underneath your fingers? Each one of those is significant. Just close your eyes and relax now, and we're going to work with some sound stuff. We'll just go through a few samples here. See what you're like when you come out of it. let yourself go into the sound. Just let everything relax. Let the sound carry you wherever you need to go. Any images or pictures or thoughts that come up, just feed them into the sound and let the sound melt them away. So that all that's left is the sound. That's a little bit of what it's like.
Good heavens, that's extraordinary. That was extraordinary. It was, at first, it was totally surrounding. It was just like I was completely in the environment. It was like there was no, it wasn't sort of hearing it through my ears at all. Do you pick an order for these, or do you...
I was just playing around, and, you know, what were you thinking of when you were lying there?
Well, first, when you started talking about send everything, you know, into the vibrations, I had these thoughts, and it was almost like seeing them go into a shredder.
Yeah.
And the question that I asked the whole time I was there was, do you as a practitioner get to do this to yourself with the same results, or is it like a musician? You never quite hear what you're playing, you know, the way that the listener hears it.
As the healer, as the person who is providing this for people, I have to go into state to make it work. I have to be, I can't just like, I'm shaking some, I have to be there with the sound, with you, with the magic that's occurring, so that I can perceive what's going on with you and make sure that you're getting what you need.
So to a certain extent, you do also get to experience the magic.
It's ecstatic for me.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of what one of these sound sessions would be. Normally they go on for quite a bit longer, and by the end of it you'd be a melted pile of bliss.
It pretty much was anyway,
Yeah.
just with my first experience of it. It was cool.
Yeah. So as human beings, health is so profound. I mean, this whole concept is so profound. Do we want to have the longest claws and the longest nails and the, you know, biggest teeth and the biggest bombs? Or do we want to learn how to live in harmony and beauty? I believe healing needs to be beautiful. That the beauty you experienced lying there on the table is intrinsically healing. If the tree is sick, do you want to go really spraying the fruit and doing the surgery on the fruit? Or do you want to go to the root? And it's at the root that the problem can be really solved. The more indigenous medicines in Chinese medicine, in fact, are more of like, well, how do we bring everything back into harmony? When there's harmony, there's no illness. In one of the oldest healing books that's still used, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, a book about Chinese medicine, in the beginning of it, it says, in the beginning of time, people were in total harmony with their environment, so there was no illness. People lived for hundreds and hundreds of years then. The golden age. Every culture has a golden age.
Right.
Why? Why? It's a lesson for us. It's how to get back into that state. People fell out of harmony with that golden age, with that total harmony with nature, I needed to meditate.
Okay.
Happens here. That's where it starts.
I appreciated the meditation you gave me.
Let me just go through this for a second, and we can talk about this. So people fell from that state and had to do breathing exercises. People fell from that state and had to actually physically exercise. The internal qigongs and neigongs of Chinese medicine were developed from this. People fell from that and they had to change the way they ate. People fell from that and they needed herbs. People fell from that and they needed acupuncture. And now, I mean, wow, we need surgery, we need poisons, we need radiation, we need all of these things that are so anti-life and destructive to every aspect of who we are. And that's the pathway back.
Ultimately to get rid of it all.
To get back to that harmony.
And get rid of all of the... Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Richard, for a wonderful afternoon, or morning and afternoon up here, high in Topanga, and for the sound healing and the acupuncture that I fortunately didn't get, but would if I needed it, and for a wonderful discussion of a huge variety of healing. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.